Welcome to Crime Story with Camila, where we dive deep into the most chilling and mysterious true crime cases. If you love real-life crime stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring you the most in-depth investigations and untold stories. On May 17th, 2001, 17-year-old Alissa Turney vanished from her Phoenix, Arizona home, leaving behind a perplexing mystery that has spanned over 2 decades. Her disappearance not only baffled authorities, but also ignited a relentless quest for answers by her younger sister, Sarah Turney. This narrative delves into the intricate details of Alissa's case, the subsequent investigation, and Sarah's unwavering determination to uncover the truth. Born on April 3, 1984, Alissa Turney was a bright and outgoing teenager living in Phoenix, Arizona. She was known for her bubbly personality, quick wit, and deep love for her friends and family. Like most teenagers, she enjoyed spending time with her boyfriend, working her part-time job at Jack in the Box, and planning for her future. Alissa's early years were marked by tragedy. Her biological mother, Barbara Strong, passed away from cancer when Alissa was just 8 years old. After her mother's death, Alissa and her older brother John were raised by their stepfather, Michael Turney, a former law enforcement officer and electrician. He also had a biological daughter, Sarah Turney, who grew up idolizing Alissa. To outsiders, the Turney household may have seemed normal, but those close to Alissa knew otherwise. Michael Turney was an extremely controlling and paranoid man. He imposed strict rules on Alissa, often monitoring her phone calls, reading her messages, and even installing surveillance cameras inside the house. Friends and family later recalled disturbing stories. Alissa had confided in them that her stepfather made her uncomfortable and was excessively overprotective. She even hinted at wanting to move out as soon as she turned 18. Despite these unsettling details, no one could have predicted that Alissa would one day disappear without a trace. May 17, 2001, was supposed to be a celebratory day. It was the last day of Alissa Turney's junior year at Paradise Valley High School in Phoenix, Arizona. But what should have been a day of excitement took a dark and unexpected turn. According to Michael Turney, he picked up Alissa early from school that day to take her out for lunch. He later claimed that the two had gotten into a heated argument over typical teenage issues, Alissa wanting more freedom, him wanting to maintain control. Michael alleged that when they returned home, Alissa went to her bedroom while he left the house to run errands and pick up Sarah Turney, Alissa's 12-year-old half-sister, from school. When they arrived back home, Alissa was gone. On the counter, Michael claimed he found a handwritten note, supposedly from Alissa, stating that she had run away to California. The note read, "Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided I really am going to California. Sarah, you wanted me gone, now you have it. Dad, I took $300 from you. That's why I saved my money." At first glance, it seemed like a straightforward runaway case. But as the details of that day were examined more closely, things didn't add up. Alissa's belongings were still at home. She had left her cell phone, her personal savings, and even her makeup and clothes behind. Strange behavior for someone planning to start a new life elsewhere. None of her friends had heard from her. Despite Alissa being a social, outgoing teenager, no one reported any prior conversations about her planning to run away. There were no confirmed sightings of Alissa after that day. Even more disturbing was the fact that Michael never reported Alissa missing. Instead, he called Alissa's friends and told them she had run away and that they shouldn't worry. When her boyfriend tried reaching out, Michael dismissed him, saying Alissa didn't want to talk to anyone. At the time, authorities took Michael's word at face value. Since Alissa was 17 and had left a note, police assumed she had left voluntarily. No missing person investigation was launched, a crucial misstep that allowed years to pass before anyone began to truly question what had really happened to Alissa Turney that day. For several years, the disappearance of Alissa Turney was treated as nothing more than a runaway case. Since she was 17 years old at the time, authorities did not prioritize an in-depth investigation. Instead, they relied on Michael Turney's account, which claimed that Alissa had left voluntarily for California. Key details from the initial investigation. Authorities did not conduct an immediate search. Since Alissa's note implied she had left on her own, police did not suspect foul play. No search teams were sent out, and there was no media coverage. Michael Turney made little effort to find Alissa. While many parents of missing children aggressively search for answers, Michael did not distribute missing person flyers, contact media outlets, or pressure law enforcement for action. Michael insisted that Alissa had called him from California. He told police that she had contacted him shortly after leaving, saying she needed space and didn't want to come home. However, there was no phone record or evidence to support this claim. No one else heard from Alissa. Not a single friend, family member, or coworker reported any communication with Alissa after May 17, 2001. For years, the case remained cold. Law enforcement maintained the belief that Alissa had simply chosen to disappear, Despite the fact that her bank accounts remained untouched, she had left all her belongings behind, and no one had seen her since. But as time passed, one person refused to let the case be forgotten: Alissa Turney, Alissa's younger half-sister. Over the years, Sarah began noticing disturbing inconsistencies in their father's story, leading her to question everything she thought she knew about Alissa's disappearance. It wasn't until 2008, 7 years later, that investigators finally took a closer look at the case. What they uncovered would completely change the course of the investigation, and Michael Turney would no longer just be seen as a grieving father. Instead, he would become the prime suspect in Alissa's disappearance. For years, the disappearance of Alissa Turney remained dormant, filed away as another runaway case. But in 2008, a dramatic turn of events forced investigators to reopen the case, this time as a potential homicide. The shift came after Alissa Turney, Alissa's younger half-sister, started questioning the inconsistencies in her father's story. As she grew older, she realized that many of the things Michael Turney had told her about Alissa's disappearance didn't make sense. She pushed for authorities to take a second look, and when they did, what they found was deeply disturbing. Key events leading to the case being reopened. The discovery of Michael Turney's obsession with surveillance. Michael had an extensive collection of surveillance recordings. He had cameras inside their home and recorded every phone call. Despite this, he could not provide a single recording of Alissa leaving the house that day. This was highly suspicious, considering his paranoia and habit of documenting everything. When police searched Michael Turney's home in December 2008, they found 26 pipe bombs, a manifesto outlining a plan to attack a local electricians' union, a stockpile of weapons and ammunition. Michael had written a 98-page document where he ranted about conspiracies and blamed Alissa's disappearance on union workers. This bizarre manifesto claimed that union members had kidnapped and murdered Alissa in retaliation against him. Investigators found no evidence supporting this claim, and it only fueled their suspicions about Michael's involvement in Alissa's disappearance. Statements from Alissa's friends and family. Friends came forward stating that Alissa had confided in them about being uncomfortable around Michael. One friend even recalled Alissa saying, "If anything happens to me, it was my dad," a chilling statement that, in hindsight, seemed like a warning. While police did not have enough evidence to charge Michael with Alissa's murder, the discovery of pipe bombs and illegal weapons led to his arrest on domestic terrorism charges. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison but never faced charges related to Alissa's disappearance at that time. Even after his release in 2017, Michael continued to deny involvement in Alissa's disappearance. But the fight for justice was far from over, because Alissa Turney refused to stay silent. Through social media and relentless advocacy, she pushed the case back into the public eye, leading to Michael's eventual arrest for Alissa's murder in 2020. For years, Alissa Turney believed what her father, Michael Turney, told her, that her older half-sister, Alissa Turney, had simply run away. But as Sarah grew older, she began noticing glaring inconsistencies in Michael's story. The more she questioned her father, the more his explanations unraveled. By the time Michael was released from prison in 2017, Sarah had fully turned against him, convinced that he was responsible for Alissa's disappearance and likely her murder. But law enforcement still did not have enough evidence to press charges. So Sarah decided to take matters into her own hands. With nowhere else to turn, Sarah launched a social media campaign to bring attention to Alissa's case. She started posting on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, using the hashtag Justice for Alissa to spread awareness and pressure law enforcement. She began sharing evidence, old recordings, and inconsistencies in Michael's story with the public. She posted clips of Alissa's voice, including a recording of a voicemail that Alissa had left before she vanished. She publicly called out Michael Turney, demanding that he tell the truth about what happened to Alissa. Her most impactful move was taking the case to TikTok, where she created short videos explaining the case and pointing the finger directly at her father. Her campaign quickly went viral, amassing millions of views and putting enormous pressure on authorities to take action. In a bold and emotional move, Sarah confronted Michael directly. She recorded their conversations, hoping to get a confession or at least some damaging statements. During one conversation, Sarah asked her father, "What happened to Alissa?" Michael's chilling response? "Be there at the deathbed, Sarah, and I'll give you all the answers you want to hear." This disturbing remark only fueled suspicions further. If Michael truly had nothing to hide, why would he wait until his deathbed to reveal the truth? Sarah's advocacy didn't just bring renewed attention to Alissa's case, it forced the hands of law enforcement. Her TikTok videos went viral, racking up millions of views and making Alissa's case one of the most talked about true crime stories online. Podcasts, TV shows, and crime YouTubers started covering Alissa's disappearance, further amplifying the case. Phoenix police came under immense pressure, and eventually, they could no longer ignore the case. Sarah's relentless pursuit of justice paid off in August 2020, when Michael Turney was officially arrested and charged with second-degree murder in connection to Alissa's disappearance. While Sarah had spent nearly 2 decades fighting for justice, her battle was far from over, because now, she had to ensure her father was convicted for what she believed he had done. After nearly 2 decades of suspicion, Michael Turney was finally arrested in August 2020 and charged with second-degree murder in connection with Alissa Turney's disappearance. His arrest was a major victory for Sarah Turney, who had spent years fighting to bring him to justice. Despite the lack of a body, prosecutors argued that there was enough circumstantial evidence to prove that Michael had murdered Alissa. The charges were based on Alissa's previous statements to friends and teachers that she was afraid of her stepfather, Michael's history of controlling behavior, including his surveillance of Alissa and his refusal to let her be independent, the suspicious note allegedly left by Alissa, which investigators believed had been staged, Michael's own bizarre and incriminating statements, including his claim that he would reveal the truth on his deathbed. The prosecution was confident that, despite the lack of physical evidence, Michael's behavior, contradictions, and disturbing past painted a clear picture of foul play. Michael Turney pleaded not guilty and maintained his innocence, insisting that Alissa had run away and that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. His defense team argued that there was no forensic evidence linking him to a crime. Without a body or definitive cause of death, there was no proof that Alissa was even deceased. His strange behavior did not mean he was guilty, just that he was a paranoid and eccentric man. His attorneys also attempted to portray the case as a social media-driven prosecution, claiming that public pressure, fueled by Sarah Turney's viral campaign, had forced law enforcement to act without enough solid evidence. In July 2023, just days before his trial was set to begin, prosecutors suddenly dropped the murder charge against Michael Turney. They cited insufficient evidence and concerns about whether they could secure a conviction without Alissa's remains or direct forensic proof of a crime. Although Michael had spent nearly 3 years in jail awaiting trial, he was now a free man once again. The decision to dismiss the case was a devastating blow for Sarah Turney, who had worked tirelessly to hold her father accountable. But despite this setback, she refuses to give up hope. Sarah continues to advocate for Alissa, pushing for the case to remain open. She encourages anyone with information to come forward. She remains active on social media, podcasts, and interviews, keeping Alissa's story in the public eye. To this day, Alissa Turney's body has never been found, and while Michael Turney has escaped conviction, many, including law enforcement, still believe he is responsible. Sarah Turney has made it clear, the fight for justice is not over. Even after Michael Turney's murder charge was dropped in 2023, Sarah Turney refused to let her sister's case fade into obscurity. She has continued her relentless fight for justice for Alissa, ensuring that her story remains in the public eye. One of the most emotionally charged moments in Sarah's fight for justice was her public confrontation with her father. Sarah has directly called out Michael on social media, pleading with him to tell the truth about what really happened to Alissa. She has attempted to meet with him, hoping he would finally confess, but Michael has refused to take responsibility. In an interview, Sarah revealed that her father still maintains his ridiculous conspiracy theory that union workers kidnapped and killed Alissa, a claim that has never been backed by any evidence. Despite this, Sarah continues to pressure Michael, believing that if she keeps the spotlight on him, he might eventually crack under the weight of the truth. Even though Michael walked free, Sarah has not stopped fighting for justice. In fact, her advocacy has only grown stronger. Sarah remains highly active on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, constantly resharing evidence and engaging with true crime communities to keep the case relevant. She continues to urge law enforcement to reopen the investigation and search for Alissa's remains, raising awareness for other missing persons cases. Sarah has expanded her advocacy beyond Alissa's case. She launched her own true crime podcast, where she amplifies the voices of other families searching for missing loved ones. By using her platform, she ensures that other cases don't go unnoticed, just like she once feared Alissa's would. Sarah is pushing for further investigation, hoping that new evidence or a confession from Michael could one day lead to a retrial. She has called on law enforcement to search new areas where Alissa's remains might be hidden. She continues to meet with investigators, journalists, and legal experts to explore any possible next steps. Will justice ever be served? Even though the murder case was dismissed, Sarah's advocacy has led to one undeniable truth. The world now knows Michael Turney is the prime suspect in Alissa's disappearance. While authorities have not officially reopened the case, the fight is far from over. Sarah Turney has vowed to never stop searching for the truth, and as long as she continues to push for justice, there remains hope that one day, the mystery of Alissa Turney's disappearance will finally be solved. Until then, the question still haunts everyone who has followed this case. Where is Alissa Turney?
Thanks for watching. For more interesting videos, please subscribe.